Hello, everyone. If you are here, you're probably at the right place. Today, we're going to talk about the third element of the 5 elements of intimacy. For all of you who have been following the lives, you have probably heard a conversation around honoring. You have heard a conversation around trust. Hi, Shalini. Good morning. And today we will be speaking about the third element, which is allowance. Allowance is one of those elements that is probably introduced to you the very first time that you walk into an access class. Or if you've even walked into an access, expo, or you've walked in for a free session or a gift call around access consciousness, it would probably be one of the first elements that gets introduced to you. Allowance is that space of where you allow everything into your world. You don't have barriers up. You don't have points of views. You allow everything into your world, knowing that you have choice with it. So when you don't allow something into your world, you're actually operating from a point of view. You have a point of view about what is right, what is wrong, what you should receive, what you should not receive, what you can receive, what you cannot receive. And then your choice comes from that space, which actually includes a lot of agreeing and aligning, resisting and reacting. Agreeing and aligning is where you are like, yes, I allow this into my world, and yes, I have to choose this. Resisting and reacting is, I can never have that in my life. I can never choose that. So both these energies come from judgment. Judgment of what is right, judgment of what is wrong. Allowance is that space of where everything is just an interesting point of view. Interesting point of view that someone is choosing something. Do I have to choose it because they are choosing it? No. I'll choose it if it works for me. I'll choose it if it contributes to me. I'll choose it if it creates something greater. Not every choice of yours that comes from a space of, I have to choose it because there's already a justification in your choice. And every choice that you make with the justification attached is not a choice, it's a judgment. Allowance is where you literally allow it into your world and you look at it for what it is. You look at it for the color that it is, not through your tinted glasses. You look at it for what it is, you ask questions around it, and you could ask questions like, will this contribute to me? If it would contribute to you, you could choose it. If you ask the question, will this contribute to me, and you get a no, what would you choose it for in that case? You choose it for somebody else. You choose it to justify your choice so you can agree and align with somebody else's point of view and not resist and react to them. Now, when you are choosing from agreeing and aligning, or from resisting and reacting, which is like the agreeing and aligning is yes, and resisting and reacting is no. When you're choosing from any of those points of views instead of asking a question, you are really choosing against you. Because your choice is always, always, always from a question. Anywhere that you make a choice from a conclusion, you're not an allowance. You are concluding. Allowance is where something greater shows up. Allowance is where you allow something greater to show up while being interesting point of view of everything that's going on around you. So when you have a point of view, you can only look at what's at the situation, at the person, at yourself from that point of view. Now, that point of view is a very minute space. It's not looking at it from an expansive space. But when you are interesting point of view about your point of view, you can actually receive way more, because that little point that you were looking from, no longer exists. So when you're in allowance of, say for instance, if the 5 elements of intimacy, when we look at allowance and we look at the energy of what you can actually be with, say for instance, yourself or your body or your choices, your creations, your awareness. I mean, how many of you are not an allowance of your awareness because you must be aware in a certain way? Or when you are aware of an energy around you, or you're aware of a person, or you're aware of even the choice that you are making that it will create, but it doesn't match your point of view, what do you go to? You go to resisting and reacting your awareness. You go to a resistance and reaction of your awareness. It doesn't allow you to be aware of what you are aware of. Similarly, when you're not in allowance of, say, your spouse or your kids, and you're in constant judgment of them, that judgment will not allow you to receive from them what they're really bringing to the table. Because you've already got a judgment of what they're bringing to the table. You've already got a judgment of who they are. You've already got a judgment of how they will be. So now they cannot be anything different. And even if they're being different, you cannot receive it because it doesn't match your point of view. And that I've noticed in relationships with others, or with yourself, or with money, or your business, or creations, or with awareness. That's where the struggle comes, because you must only receive what matches your point of view. So where you start to actually give up your point of view by being interesting point of view about your point of view is where you start to invite the energy of allowance into your world. So if you're struggling with a relationship, say if you're a parent and you're struggling with your child, instead of trying to fix your child, or instead of trying to force your child to do something, or instead of constantly sitting with your head in your hands and judging them out of energy, instead of being that, you can always ask, what allowance can I be with them here? What allowance can I now be with this? When you are in allowance with somebody, or with your creation or awareness or your body or somebody else, that allowance is what will create the change. So what allowance can I be with this that can allow this to change is a brilliant question that you can ask. It's a brilliant space that you can be with any situation that is not changing. Instead of trying to fix it, instead of trying to change it through judgment, ask it to change through allowance. There's no fight in that. There's no conflict in that. There's just ease with the change. So yeah, that is the third element of the 5 elements of intimacy. And if you would like to know more, and if you would like a deep dive, we do have a class coming up, which is going to be a 3-hour class around the 5 elements of intimacy. And we are going to be exploring the 5 elements way deeper, and we're going to have conversations around what you are struggling with, which is the element that you are struggling with the most. We are going to talk about the remaining 2 elements tomorrow and day after, and recognize what is the element that you are struggling with the most. Some of you are struggling with honor. Some of you are struggling with, thank you for that. Some of you are struggling with allowance. Some of you are struggling with trust. So when you know what you're actually struggling with, you can actually start to be more of that energy, start to invite that energy more into your world. So now you can actually have ease with being the 5 elements of intimacy. So this, my friends, is an invitation to all of you. If you would like to have a deep dive and to actually explore possibilities, and we also have a book club of this particular book that Dr. Dane here and Gary Douglas have written. This is available on Amazon, and you can buy it. You can read it on your own and get more information. And if you would like to join our book club that's coming up, you can always ping me. I look forward to creating way more ease, not just for ourselves, but for generations that follow and for the planet. I look forward, friends.